HubSpot kind of started as a marketing product. How do you actually define HubSpot today?
I often share a Horizons framework that I use to create like HubSpot's platform or ecosystem opportunity. And it has 3 phases, which is...
I love that. I've been observing the evolution of product teams over the years, and I think we're at crossroads at this point. Revenue growth and the ultimate outcomes for the company.
How do you take it from what's kind of like neat or fun to really necessary for growth? And for me, that's on...
How do you go about that actual integration from a product standpoint? How do you ensure that both the team and the tech that you are acquiring ends up becoming truly part of your core team?
We see a lot of pricing models that are around usage or utilization. I think that a challenge with AI, right, is how do you think about...
Hey, this is Carlos's AI voice clone. He is the CEO of Product School and the host of the Product Podcast. He asked me to set the stage for today's guest before he takes over the interview. Karen Ng is the Senior Vice President of Product and Partnerships at HubSpot, a leading software platform empowering over 240,000 businesses across 120 countries to manage their sales, marketing, and customer support teams. In 2024, HubSpot generated over $2.5 billion in revenue, driven by significant investments in artificial intelligence. Karen oversees critical products like Smart CRM, Operations Hub, and Ecosystem, while driving strategic partnerships and business development. Her technical expertise is notable with 3 patents. She has also published research in stress detection, interactive health assessments, and robotic expressivity when she worked as a machine learning researcher at MIT. This episode is a masterclass in AI. During our conversation, Karen shares advanced insights on her approach to deploying AI agents in marketing, sales, customer support, and data analytics across HubSpot's product portfolio, Karen's decision-making process for when to build, buy, or partner, her innovative approach to product org design by combining functional structures and pod-based teams, specific use cases for how product teams can leverage AI agents to augment their impact and automate workflows, how product leaders can elevate their roles as key drivers of revenue, Karen's framework for creating self-sustaining growth flywheels within a product, trade-offs of alternative pricing models to seat-based pricing, such as usage-based and outcome-based models that align with customer value creation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Product Podcast, Karen.
Carlos, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I need to start with this. I heard that you love sticky notes.
How do you hear these things? I do love sticky notes. I was like, I definitely am like a old school task notebook, sticky notes all over my desk type of person.
Tell me more about your process to kind of combine that offline world into the way you organize your work online.
It's interesting. I'm actually looking for a solution that kind of combines both, but the process of writing things down helps me clarify my thinking and thoughts. And oftentimes, I almost as product managers, like what we're doing is we're taking millions of input and my brain works the same way. And so jotting it down, affinity mapping, figuring out where clarity is, using that to kind of move things around. I use that affinity mapping almost as an exercise in UXR that you do this, where you kind of define themes and bring clarity to something. I have ideas pop in that I then draw affinities towards and then put them in areas that I work on. I also use it for lists as like to do as I clarify thoughts. Yeah.
That's cool. And I mean, there's so many fun facts here that I got about you that I don't want to deviate the conversation too much, but I have to also bring up the fact that you you did a triathlon.
I did a sprint triathlon.
What's
that? Sprint triathlon is a smaller. Oh, I think like the full triathlon is probably like an Ironman almost. Sprint triathlon is a combination of swim, bike, and run, but you do all 3 at once at a smaller level. So you probably do about 35 laps, 750 meters, about 12-mile bike, and then I think it's a 10-mile run, probably altogether. I had my second kid, and I thought I'd give myself, I like small, like goals, achievable goals. And so that was my achievable goal of like getting back in shape after I had my second kid.
So there's a theme here between people who are obviously extremely accomplished at work and also like the curiosity outside of work. So I wonder if you've seen any other connection between kind of that type of curiosity and intensity that you appreciate outside work and how you are able to transfer it into the work that you do at HubSpot.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think of it a lot as like, are you driven? Can you figure out ambiguity? Are you inspired? Many things like the work I do at HubSpot, we we work on tools that help small and medium businesses and organizations grow. And if you think about these small and medium businesses, they're often the backbone of like the US economy or the world's economy. And I think of the product that I build as my goal is to help them grow. And they have all different kinds of challenges, from life going on to how are they going to create new revenue? How are they going to acquire new customers? And that's just like a motivating factor. But my outside of work goals, a lot of ways, like I'm kind of doing the same thing. Like I've never done a sprint triathlon. I'm a terrible swimmer. How do I overcome swimming? That's the scariest of the three sports, because if you can't do the bike or the run, you just stop and you're fine. If you stop swimming in the middle of the lake, you drown. So that's the one I knew I had to work on. But you kind of break the problem down in different areas, and I knew I had to figure out how to swim.
So you are the SVP of product at HubSpot. And I was checking out, I'm a client, by the way. I started using your product
Awesome.
when it was much, much smaller. So I'm very curious to learn from your own experience, especially for the last 3 years, almost 3 years you've been there, like how you're positioning the platform as a whole. Like I've seen the evolution of the GTM as an umbrella, right? Like where HubSpot kind of started as a marketing product, and now it's evolved into additional parts of the whole GTM. Like how do you actually define HubSpot today?
HubSpot is a customer platform that helps millions of organizations grow, and it is that combination. So we definitely evolved from a single app that was a marketing app that helped people reach customers the right time, to a suite of products, which was the Marketing Hub, Sales Hub, and then Service Hub, to a customer platform that was all of it together. We've evolved to that kind of platform vision. But yeah, I see HubSpot as a customer platform that has engagement hubs that help sales, marketing, and service in the front office do their work, a smart CRM, and a unified data middle layer that helps you get the right picture of your customer profile, and then Breeze, our AI family of tools and services, and then an ecosystem around it.
So I want to talk about those phases because I've seen a lot of companies that start pretty much as a feature. They turn that into a product. Ideally, they turn that product into a family of products or platform. You took that further into an ecosystem, right? And now there's a marketplace where there are people or companies building on top of it. And then ultimately what you're doing with AI. So let's kind of go phase by phase. So in that phase that you went from product into platform, I see that you have different options. So in some cases you build it, in some other cases you partner or even you acquired companies. So what's your rationale to decide how you expand that product?
You know, inside of HubSpot, I often even to our partners, I often share a Horizons framework that I use to create like HubSpot's platform or ecosystem opportunity. And it has 3 phases, which is I deeply believe that innovation is going to happen. And if I can craft the right things to help people innovate on top of our platform, they're going to build things I would never even imagine. So that first horizon is just make sure you're opening the right APIs, the right surfaces, but you're enabling the power and the building blocks for people to build. The second phase is help people make money, help people create a business, help people create a flywheel of like, yes, I want to help customers grow. I want to bring an app or an integration. I want to bring a service, and then I want customers to get value from it. And then it causes this kind of virtual cycles. Ecosystems for me are successful when they become self-sustaining, which is value in, value out. And then that third phase is like allow full businesses and organizations to like actually create whole new companies on top of an ecosystem. And that's kind of like each of those can work in parallel, but I use that kind of as a framework for what we should build. You asked about like, how do we know when we want to buy? How do we know when we want to build or partner? Those are the 3 ways I think of product strategy, which is build, partner, buy. Every one of them takes a place. We create a map inside of HubSpot, which is kind of like our partner integration strategy map. And we know that we want to build, these are such core use cases to where we see sales, marketing, service, and how buying is transforming that we know we need them native to the product. That's often a buy. I'll look at an acquisition, for instance, if it helps us accelerate both from technology or from talent or skill. And then the rest is really partner, which is the partner strategy is an inverse of our build strategy. So if we know we're not going to build deeply in certain areas, we look for deep partnerships in those areas as well. And that's always evolving. You know, the next year it can change or so. And I want partners to know where we're heading, but it evolves. Yeah.
Your title says SVP of product and partnerships, which is kind of unique. I don't see a lot of product leaders who also own partnerships. So that's why I want to dig a little deeper into that. So most recently at your last inbound conference, so you announced a partnership, for example, with Amplitude, right? To enhance product analytics. So guide me through that rationale. Like what are the levers there? And then ultimately, how do you ensure that this is truly a successful partnership for all parties involved?
Yeah. Well, partnerships one, I think really should be like a 1+1+3. One of the reasons I run partnerships as well is I think of partnerships as like, you can think of it having different goals. So one of it could be, it is actually about augmenting or accelerating your product capabilities. So like the partnership we do with Amplitude, we have a whole customer platform that helps sales, marketing, and service run their businesses. Amplitude, I've always been like a huge product champion on, because I've always used it as a product leader to say, where are people coming to my product? Where are they using certain features? How do I take where it's driving usage and then tie it to potentially a campaign that I should run? That connection between product analytics and GTM hasn't really been done before. So that was kind of the magic that we saw come together. You could use product analytics and Amplitude to identify what's lighting up in your product and then tie that to the outcomes that you want, which is driving essentially growth. So with the goals of partnerships, it's often to augment product. It's also to stand up and bootstrap new ecosystems. Like when I was at Google, I worked on Android, and I was helping reboot the wearables platform. Turns out that if you're rebooting the wearables platform, it's really important to have apps on it because people tend to buy watches for fitness. And if you don't have Strava or Nike or folks on it, it's not that interesting of a platform. So that's why the two get tied together a little bit, which is it's bootstrapping a platform, accelerating product, or it's kind of game-changing kind of transformations. And I saw that with the Amplitude one, which is, what if you could take the way that people use product analytics and see what lights up for PLG and transform that into the outcomes, which are the marketing campaigns or the sales growth that you wanted, or where you need to focus as a customer success team on retention. That's where the magic lights up.
I like how you're thinking about the equation of 1+1 being 3. As a way to summarize the successful partnership. Another observation based on what you're saying is it seems like just having a marketplace or having this type of platform where you already see partnerships happening and companies already integrating with your product, you can identify what are some of those really core use cases that at some point require for a deeper integration. I mean, I'm just thinking about Amazon, like they use all of that data to then decide what are the specific products they want, the white label products they want to also offer through their own marketplace.
Yeah. The marketplace is really key. I think it's where people discover and find. You need other mechanics really around a marketplace. Like a lot of people who think an organic marketplace like just comes, it doesn't really work that way. You need a little incentive structure, but you need a place to discover and to find and to connect. And then oftentimes marketplaces are where the economies get built as well.
Let's talk about the buy case. Literally this month, you announced an acquisition. And obviously, there's been multiple, right? Like I see that before that in October, November of last year, you announced cash flow. 2023 or December of 2023, you announced the acquisition of Clearbit, another company that I use. So guide me through that rationale behind buying.
Again, it's kind of like where can we accelerate both from a technology perspective and from a skill perspective. One thing that Clearbit brought to us is we are a customer platform that is often a source of truth for all GTM teams. And what people want to know about like a company or a contact like that comes in is like, I want to know the whole thing before I have a conversation. You've done your homework around me. I want to know all of that before that. And so what Clearbit brought was just an additional understanding of contacts and companies so that we knew a lot more. And we want our customers to have that. We want them to have a unified source of their customer data so they have the right context at the right time. And so that became the Breeze Intelligence product. With our cash flow acquisition, that's a really natural one where when you looked at our ecosystem, what I look at is where are customers demanding more things? All of them, when they worked with HubSpot in our larger or complex companies, they needed payments, quotes, billing. And so we had a thriving ecosystem around that as well. But it became so core to our product that every time a certain type of company was looking for HubSpot, they would ask, what is the CPQ solution? So Cashflow is bringing in, just Sarika and team is just bringing in such talent kind of in that space. And then with Frame, that one I'm really excited about. One of the things, my background is actually as a machine learning researcher. And AI is a disruption. It's the next wave kind of that's happening now, but it isn't just hype. How do you take it from what's kind of like neat or fun to really necessary for growth? And for me, that's unstructured data. So unstructured data being like this video call that we're on or an email that you log, all of that is just a gold mine that is, we already have so much of that customer data. What Frame brings for us is the ability to extract out the insights from that data in a structured way to essentially turn unstructured data into structured data and allow workflows and automation and connecting to customers all off of that.
So I love how you have a framework, behind the decisions that you make. And inorganic growth is clearly an angle for a lot of companies, especially as they reach scale. But and if a challenge that should occur after you make that acquisition, you have a business case that makes sense. You end up in this case, buying a company, but then how do you go about that actual integration from a product standpoint? Like, how do you ensure that both the team and the tech that you are acquiring ends up becoming truly part of your core team?
Yeah, there's different philosophies for that for sure. I think for HubSpot, our philosophy has often been that we look at acquisitions that are almost like the data layer or the back end. We believe in a DNA, like a concept that's called crafted, not cobbled. We don't want like our product to feel like a collection of a bunch of different products. We care a lot that it's a simple, easy to use, intuitive UX that people can pick up the product and have fast time to value and growth, and you have a unified data layer. So that principle helps us understand, like when we do an acquisition, we want the team to be integrated in kind of like, we want them to be HubSpotters, we want them to be grow getters. We use a term inside grow getters. But we think about the integration as like, for in the Clearbit case, it became Breeze Intelligence as the product. The data layer was what kind of lit up there. And in the same way that Frame, we all the time that HubSpot will have Breeze in our HubSpot AI, like it just has the power to change how SMBs grow and how scaling companies grow. And it will just be a natural part of like, go ahead and just have a meeting assistant or a conversation or join a Zoom call or connect your inbox. All of that will just light up in the CRM itself.
So I want to talk about Breeze AI. You mentioned this a couple of times because I was trying to kind of put it in a bucket, but it seems like it's more cross-functional, right? It's truly the AI that is powering the entire customer journey. So I would love to get your thoughts on how you actually do that across all the different hubs that you have on HubSpot.
Yeah, Breeze is our family of AI products, but it has a few things in it. Right now, it has Breeze Copilot, which is a Copilot assistant that kind of works with you wherever you are. That's just embedded inside the HubSpot product. It has Breeze Agent. And so we have a couple of agents out in the market. We have a social agent, a customer agent, which is a service agent, a prospecting agent. The agents work for you. And so there's a family of agents that augment your team as part of Breeze. We have Breeze Intelligence, which is the enrichment and the intent product. So as people are, for instance, shopping online, we can understand if people are trying to research for a solution, that's part of Breeze Intelligence. And then we have kind of Breeze Embedded, which is all of the features that work across HubSpot. So yes, it powers the whole customer platform with AI.
So Breeze is kind of the umbrella term for the family of AI-powered products that you have.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of those agents as specific use cases. As like I think that the service agent is something maybe that first comes to mind, as a lot of people can imagine, okay, how that industry can be more disrupted and you can have more autonomy in the interactions that you have with a chat or whatnot. But like, what is the kind of the next generation for that? Like, how are you truly envisioning AI agents in this case, empowering more humans? So this is true productivity and not just another check.
The customer agent is really a really natural one, right? Like you can measure it success on ticket resolution and ticket deflection. So, the customer agent today being able to scale a support team. Simply, we use it ourselves as well. So like if you understand a knowledge base well and you understand tickets well, and you're even seeing customers have a repeat in the kinds of questions they're asking, you can answer so many of them automatically. So imagine a world where a customer agent takes 40, 50% of being able to like resolve customers. That's so much more time that the team can use to connect to customers, the team can use to innovate, the team can use to like think about what to build next. That's what we imagine the customer agent, first off the base doing. I imagine that there'll probably be, Dharmesh talks about this a lot with a family of agents at HubSpot. It really is going to augment your team. And maybe we kind of think about agents as we look for ways that it's not just like a neat or a hype factor, but where are things that are necessary? So what we're trying to do, for instance, with things like our social agent is you probably had a social marketing manager that tried to create a backlog of what kind of social posts you wanted to have. What if that agent or that person could go back and say, okay, Carlos, I know all your podcasts. These are the guests that did the best. These are the ones that had the most views. These are the kind of topics that resonate the most, but it could just tell you that, which is like these, 3 themes are the ones that are most popular, and then generate a backlog of you or potentially find you new candidates that could be part of the podcast. They're really things that humans did and great humans do really well. But that's the kind of the world of like agents kind of can take that work for you. You'll probably still have a human in the loop, but we kind of believe in humans are now supercharged with agents.
And for that data enrichment part that you mentioned, give me an example of how that kind of agent can augment what we were already able to do with Clearbit in terms of just data enrichment.
So we don't quite have an agent kind of in the Breeze intelligence space, but I'll give you an example of that. So imagine a self-generating CRM where you don't even need the same concept anymore. But if I'm having this call with you and you've asked me all these questions about like my history or my past, you've kind of stated what my title was, what I do at HubSpot, it could take that and say, okay, that's Karen. She's an SVP. She works at HubSpot. She works on these 3 things. She thinks of the ecosystem that way. Those are all properties that could be in a CRM. So that's an example of what we call conversational enrichment that, agent or no agent, you can build that anyways without manually entering.
I'm very curious about the kind of adoption of these agents within the large enterprise, because there's always a variety of enthusiasm, right? Like I can imagine executives being more excited because that than maybe some ICs that might be more afraid of the introduction of this agent. So for someone who's already running a platform, you can see service, you can see marketing, you can see sales. Like, what are the most common entry points? And then after there's an entry point, like how do you see that a company can feel more comfortable adopting the whole suite of agents?
Yeah, I think agents and the agentic layers are still playing out. I see workflows as a great example, where like workflows were very kind of human led and human driven and very serial. There will be agentic workflows that have reasoning at every step, and that helps you determine what step to take next. That is already coming in the heart of it many things. Then there's kind of like full agents, and again they're rationalizing. We think of agents as agents have skills. And, agents, those skills could be like a single layer, but you can combine all those together. You could rationalize how you orchestrate those skills. That's really the magic of agents. For large enterprises, like we'll see how the world plays out with agents. Is it going to be one big agent that knows your context? And when you're switching from marketing to sales, is it going to be a team full of agents? I think that's still to be seen. But the concept of it breaking down from larger orchestration, something that thinks and rationalizes to smaller skills and smaller steps, I think that will happen.
And as you think about this applied to the product team, what are the specific agents or use cases where you see a combination of that technology with the product team?
In terms of how we use it or how we build it?
Well, I guess you do both, right?
Yeah. We think about it a lot where we're like, okay, the product team, we believe deeply that AI is going to be a game changer for scaling companies to grow. And so we need our product team to be fluent in AI as well, and using it every day. Like, I'm using it to write papers now, or even prep for this interview, or, like in different ways, we need to be AI fluent. And so, because of that, right, like the co-pilots are a thing right now, understanding projects, rationalizing things. Where we use agents, the agents are still coming. So I was like, there's no agent, for instance, that I use every single day. I use ChatGPT, I use Claude, I use a lot of those, but it's still kind of human led. We'll see a mix of both. So I think of it as like as a product leader, we need to be AI fluent, and that means both in our personal and professional life. And then that helps us kind of build true value into the products that we have. AI is a means to an end. It's just a technology. It's not the thing of itself.
I agree, and I'm obsessed with it because I also want to use it to my own advantage. I remember I come from a technical background. I had an AI class back in the day. It was optional. Nobody wanted to take it. Now the world is very different, and I see my engineering friends how they are truly switching behavior, and now curating the code and like spending less time coding and more telling the machine what to code. In product, I'm hoping that this can be the case where there can be less work on the actual creation of the deliverables in terms of roadmaps, strategy documents, PRDs, user research, and others, and more on the higher level layer
Yeah.
where you are curating like the ultimate output of that type of work.
Yeah, I think it's happening for sure. I know like even in my own cases, like I was recently writing a big doc for a board meeting, and the work that I had already done was I had crafted our strategy on a slide, and I had curated the way that I would write it, the different ways I was articulating our 4 big initiatives. Each of our 4 initiatives has my team has been writing papers for the last like quarter, and normally I would read through each one. I would understand the quarter maps. I would summarize it all together. And now what I did is I just actually downloaded all of them. I uploaded them all into our enterprise account. And then I said, summarize it for me, and summarize it in a way where I get a table of pros and cons, which ones were well written, which ones were the gaps, where the milestones are coming, and give me that as an output. And then for the actual strategy paper, I said I had already written 3 really well done slides that were framed the way that I would normally present it at an exec review. And I said, okay, I want you to write this paragraph of paper about our data strategy, and I want you to take slide 29, 30, and 31. So I do think it's augmenting now how we think about strategy, PRDs, learning. And then I know you mentioned your engineering friends. I do think product is going to start doing a lot of the prototyping and the mocks as well. Like there's so many tools now that help you so quickly get to a proof of concept. I think, and a visual is 1,000 words. Like I was working on a vision video recently for our company, and like that vision video alone, you can see the power of like what could unlock if you had unstructured data, for instance, working across all of HubSpot.
And I like that you're talking about it also from an executive perspective. So these are specific use cases that can be used for different levels of seniority. It's not just for the IC, it's also for the CEO or C-level suite.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's talk about pricing and how this is impacting your own business, right? As there are more, like, how are you actually thinking about pricing your products?
For AI impact or just pricing in general?
For AI impact.
Yeah, that one's really interesting. I would say like, we have a pricing team at HubSpot, and Nicholas kind of runs our AI team here. We're thinking a lot about just different pricing. I don't know if everyone's gotten it perfectly yet. There are your typical models, right? They come in different forms. There's the user per seat model where you've seen like a bunch of companies do a user per seat. We're watching that evolve a little bit. Like we're watching that evolve where sometimes it's actually in the core seat itself, or it's now included. Some of the stuff that like Google's been doing is heading that direction. We see a lot of pricing models that are around usage or utilization. I think that the challenge with AI, right, is how do you think about it? It has a COGS component to it, computation and rational models behind it. Is that usage based on task, or is it based on users, or is it based on something else that it completes? So I think, at HubSpot, we think a lot about value first. Make sure it's customer value, it's necessary, not just neat, and then we'll think about like a specific monetization of it.
And I think that is an approach that allows people to truly give you insights into what they're really looking for, right?
Right.
I've seen another approach, which is trying to charge for it as an add-on, but I think it limits the ultimate potential and kind of penalizes the user for trying new things. So I'm with you. I think it's still evolving, and I've heard more about the usage-based pricing or outcome-based pricing as a better solution than the traditional seat-based pricing, given that in some cases it's true that functions might be reduced in just because they will need less people to even make more impact.
Yeah. I would definitely see that evolution where like, as your team size grows, okay, that's very natural in seats. But AI is going to kind of change the game where it's going to make teams more productive. But then it's really around, it's almost the same way I think about data, where like data is around almost volume and activation. And from a pricing concept, it's a well understood concept of, okay, potentially you pay for storage, potentially you pay for compute, you pay for the value that you get, and it's pay as you go. I think that's where we're seeing with AI too. It's usage, outcome based, Maybe the seat thing will be there, but it really changes the concept of a team and how productive you are.
So when you look at your strategic priorities and see, okay, we have this important investment in AI, but there's also some core components of your product maybe are not AI powered yet, and they still need attention. So how do you go about prioritizing?
From a company perspective, we have essentially our strategic goals and they are ordered. So even from the product team, we know that it's really important to help companies like grow with AI. We know that we want to be an AI native CRM. And so we know that that's just a really important thing. We also know, though, that we serve growth leaders and we want growth leaders like what they want is they want something that's easy and intuitive. Doesn't matter how complex your organization is. Like at the end of the day, you want so a lot of things in that easy and fast have sign of value. Like those are the things that we look at for a growth leader, and that helps guide the roadmap. Even if they aren't AI, it still means that we want to kind of serve that user. But in terms of priorities, we think of it in terms of what are our strategic goals as a company? How are they ordered? Where are things that we need to move? Both from another example is like you've seen HubSpot kind of evolve from SMBs. We want to be we serve growth leaders in scaling companies. That could be a 1 to 25 company. That could be a 25 to 2,000 company as we move up market. Both of those are really important. But we have our strategic goals and then we order them to help kind of give framework and guidance.
So I want to try to go deeper here because I think
Yeah.
your case is so complex. Like you can grow up market, down market. You have HubSpot for startups. Your core is SMB, but you also have large enterprises. But then you can go cross-functional, right? You have the marketing hub, the sales hub, the service hub. You also have like the Breeze AI, like kind of touching almost every single thing that you do. So in this complex approach, like if you were to break it down for your product team, like what is it that you do to ensure ultimate clarity?
That's a great question. I think our job of leaders sometimes is like to make the call or to make the play. Like sometimes I tell my team, people tell me that I have such conviction in like the direction that we're going to go. And I'm like, I don't actually know number 1 of 10 to like such deep conviction, but I have conviction from understanding customer pain points and like talking to customers and knowing where we're going, that I have deep conviction that I know the 3 things I want us to focus on are in the top 10. And then I believe in velocity and execution. So like by the time we're done arguing over the next 6 months, that other people might say, hey, what's number 1? I've already done 3 of the 10, and then I've done 6 of the 10. So in a lot of ways, my product philosophy is like to create clarity in a moment of time on these are the most important things we're going for now. These are the ones we're not doing yet. Here's what's on the horizon for what's next. And then I believe in velocity and execution. So by the time everyone else is trying to figure out, what's 1 or 2 of 10, I've already actually shipped and delivered 6 of 10. So I just need conviction that it's in the top set.
Got it. So it's more about like just having enough bets that are reasonable than just saying 1, 2, 3. I think the trade-off, I mean, great to have velocity, but I think the trade-off, especially in a large organization, is a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So how do you actually ensure velocity and compared to maybe smaller companies that only have 1 or 2 shots on target?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm coming from a startup. I ran product and machine learning at a Series B startup called Common Room, and like that's a very different problem where you are still trying to find product market fit. So you can take 4 big bets on use cases. You have to be good. You have to be better in a couple of use cases than entering the field. Otherwise, you're just playing catch up. So sometimes I think of that product philosophy as like the way I play darts. So if you play this kind of darts has 3, you get 3 darts. And I use 2 darts always offensively to try to close and get points, to try to get points. And then I use 1 dart to play defense. And so I think a product market fit in that kind of area is a little bit like you're on more offense, but you need to be really clear that your bets are really good and that you're making differentiated bets. In a bigger company, I still think the same way, but you might you asked me the platform question when we started. We needed to figure out how to really open up the platform. So that might be 1 offensive, 2 defensive, because there was more that we had to open up, but I'm pretty clear that we're taking 1 offensive bet, 2 defensive bets. And then the horizon looks like we have to open up a set of APIs and surfaces. Now, in the larger company, though, there's a little bit more structure. So I think, our objective goals in place where we might have some of the big bets, they're ordered a certain way. And then as the team cascades and writes, I believe a lot in teams having autonomy and like, your customer, your experts. Like, I'm not going to mandate every big thing, but we need to move quickly. And the way that you cascade your OGPs, like that helps create enough of a steer that we kind of are going the same direction, even if it's not like a perfect map.
Very curious about that piece, like the team org design. How did you go about that?
This was an age old, like I'm sure every product leader has like different lessons here. I've heard all kinds of things. Like we at HubSpot, we use OGPs, which are kind of like OKRs. And so, you asked me about org design too. So one is like, how do we do planning? How do we do planning in a clear way that everyone knows the top strategic 6 or 7, right? We have strategic 7 here. How do they know that? And then how do they know which plays or goals cascaded that? That one's really clear. And then how do we know the outcomes and the things that we measure? So that's one way we craft it. The way I think about org design in relation to that, though, is at the end of the day, if there's too much tension between what a team would naturally do and what you want their top objective to go, I find that to be unnatural. And those are often cases I look at org design. I want people's, like, as much as I can as a leader, like make your life easier where you're rowing the same direction as our top objectives. That's what I would do, like an org design change.
You mentioned you use a slight variation to the OKR.
Yeah.
What's that?
So that's the OGP. So objective, goal, and play. We believe a lot in solving for the customer and moving with velocity and then making bets. So the OKR is a little bit more structured. Objective, key results. It's very structured. OGPs are kind of the same thing, but you'll see that the last one ends with a play, which the play can be wrong. It means that you should experiment. You can go fast. You can try a hypothesis, and then you can cut it off if it doesn't work. So it kind of creates that culture of you do not always have to be right, but you need to move quickly and you need to make a bet and you need to understand the hypothesis you're trying to get.
And how quickly are we talking about here?
It depends on each thing, to be honest. Early AI days, like one of the reasons we were talking about AI is like, yes, we think it's a disruption wave. Is it useful yet? Not yet. What do we need to get out? Everyone try, and like, then you get the data of like, okay, these are the things people are coming back to. For instance, it turned out people are not generating millions and millions of content. You get a whole bunch of different content that's not that great. But they are coming back to tone change. They are coming back to changing the writing style. They are coming back to summarizing a meeting output. They are coming back to generating a blog post. Then you can double down. So, even a quarter worth of time is like enough to start seeing where users are activating what customers want.
So, I mean, I love that question about org design because I'm a geek at heart. And because after talking to so many product leaders, I start getting patterns, but at the same time, each person has their own playbook.
Yeah.
So I want to understand, like in general, in your case, like, do you create specific squads or pods that just focus on certain missions, or do you have more of a functional structure where people are more focused on a specific parts of a business? Like, how do you mix those concepts?
Yeah. I love this one too, because I could geek out probably on org design all day. Let me tell you my philosophy a little bit, where I had used a combination of both depending on the environment I'm in. So I actually believe really deeply in pods. They work super well when you're in like a startup or when you're really, really agile, because pods are ephemeral, right? And the nature of a pod is that you could put something together and you can get an outcome super, super quickly, and people aren't necessarily tied to the code. And so they're ephemeral. You can change them. And as your priorities shift, you can move people around and there's no big tie to it. Hard part with pods is who owns the bugs when they come over time? Who owns thinking about the longer term roadmap if you've disassembled the pod? Then it goes to the functional side, where in larger organizations, I definitely see in more mature products, I do think it's really important to have functional owners, because even though I'm in product, I think of org design, it has to work for strategy and it needs to match code at the end of the day. Like, I would never do an org design that didn't fit my engineering counterparts, because at the end of the day, the product we ship is code. So in the larger organizations with functional, you want deep code ownership. You want, when you understand how things work, you want to be able to connect different parts into a platform, and that platform needs to be connected. So I use both tools depending on where it is. And even in a company like HubSpot or a larger company, I will sometimes advocate for ephemeral pods at the time we're creating like a net new thing because they're faster in how they move.
Karen, as you face some of these challenges, some of them are more technical related, some of them are more people related. Like, how do you learn? And like, who's in your sounding board to help you navigate some of these complexities?
Yeah. I there's so many like amazing product leaders that I feel like Lenny's done an amazing job, like just kind of curating different product leaders. Dablu is one I look at a lot. I look at just these different ones. I look at, in the startup space for me, when I was in the startups, there are so many different portfolio companies where these startups are like velocity and product market fit. That's key. It's like you just have to move so quickly. So there's so many people that I feel like I learn from different philosophies. The pod concept, I felt like, Netflix actually created a version of that, and they created a set of books around that play. I was at a company, I was at Microsoft at the time, where everything was always the same structure. And it really worked. I learned a lot of different tools, but it was just so different when like live or die was, you have a runway, you have a burn rate, you have, a year, and you really need a product. And like at the end of the day, the product I'm building has to be able to be a product that has enough value that people will pay you for it. And like, it just creates a new bar onto, it's a higher bar for us as product managers. Like, you need to create value and it has to be sustained.
I push that even further because I think just creating value was kind of enough up until certain time. Now it's like you also need to realize some of that value and be accountable for it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually think that it's really different mindset. Like when you're, sometimes I think about it as like the life of abundance or life of scarcity, and product managers, like you learn in both, but it's interesting to see how people have different mindsets where in a life of abundance, yeah, I could just build a product I want to solve for the customer. I could take my time. And in a life of scarcity, like value does not equal you just created product value. It actually equals somebody will pay you money for that. So you found a business case that like actually solves a deep problem.
And that reminded me of the earlier story you told me about your the sprint triathlon, and how when you are swimming, you can't stop.
Yeah.
In this case, you also can't stop.
Yeah.
But given that this is a team sport, ultimately product, like how are you able to transfer that responsibility to ensure that other people around you feel that sense of commitment?
I love sharing context, and I kind of love sharing. Some things I do with my team is like I share sometimes my top of mind. There are like things that keep me up at night of like, ooh, I think this is like a really big threat. Like, this is a really big threat in the age of, age of AI, sure, everyone thinks it's disruption. Great. Why do I think that? I came from a machine learning background, so I'm like, okay, support vector machines, neural networks, like I'm like, it's game changing in how much it can rationalize now. But what's a threat? The threat's like context. If everyone's using the same models, how do they specialize? How do they learn? What's our expertise? Do we become more of a generic platform, or do we stay with sales, marketing, service? If we stay with that, like what is the expertise we have? What do we know about people? And so I share a lot of like, I try to share a lot of context and like what keeps me up at night, why I picked the 4 things. For instance, like there's 4 big plays for us and how we're thinking about one of the initiatives that I own. Kind of the context behind that. And like, I love sharing like we all the time where it's just when you hear it from someone and not like a set of notes that you're getting from somebody else, you feel the empathy there. The other thing I've been recently doing is like, sometimes I'm Figma a lot building. Like if you can almost craft what it could look like, this is where I think product management is AI. It's not just papers. If you can prototype and show. When I worked at Microsoft on Visual Studio, I would sometimes like spend the weekend like writing a C# proof of concept of like, what it might look like in the editor. And, it was very dumb in how it did some things, but like just being able to see it goes 1,000 words.
I love that. I've been observing the evolution of product teams over the years, and I think we're at crossroads at this point because product is not part of GTM, but it's also not part of technology. And as there are more product executives at the table, and now we are talking about being accountable for revenue growth and the ultimate outcomes for the company, like where do you think we go from here? Like what is the role that the product teams are going to start playing kind of in this new phase of pretty much wartime and having to show results?
Yeah, I think it's going to go down that path where, even as a product leader, I've been lucky enough in so many different places to learn the product craft, where product intuition, taste, pet competitors, how do you take that all together and create product craft? But the other side of it is like business strategy, landscape, what's changing, what's evolving, how does revenue work? What is PLG? PLG, I've often seen PLG teams, products teams start taking revenue goals because it's a self-service product direction. I do think there's going to be a bit more of that where you combine both. And product is really not just the product internal craft, but it's how you go to market with it. How do you think about revenue? How do you think about demand? And of course, it works in conjunction with all these other functions. Like you can have a stellar, great product and it can't die if you cannot figure out distribution.
Well, Karen, just to wrap up on a lighter note, I obviously appreciate the quality of your delivery here. And I can imagine that didn't come natural, right? Like as someone who's technical, who's done a lot of different things, but you also spoke at the Google I.O. You were at Google, you spoke at the HubSpot Inbound. So how do you acquire those public speaking skills?
Oh gosh. I had a great mentor, Steph. She did a bunch of different keynotes as well. She always said something to me, which was like, the way you present in a keynote is like a marathon. And it's like the sprint try. If you practice and you work at it's like aspiring tennis. If you are working hard at it, it does not mean you're always going to win. But it does mean that you're training and you're practicing. And so for a Google Keynote IO, one, I like to craft my own stories a lot. Like I often have a team that helps as well, but like I have a thing I want to say. So it's part of it is script writing, which is the storyline and the craft. And then I think for public speaking, it's practice. If I'm doing like a big keynote, like the Google I/O one, like I often have my headphones in while I play tennis, while I run, while I walk around, while I drive. I'm actually listening to a recording of myself because at the end of the day, it's you're just going to go up there and give it. And if it's a keynote that big, I kind of figured out different ways of like, it's so boring to hear yourself say it over and over again that I can't do it. But I can record myself with different tones and intonations, and I can listen to it. And as I drive and do everything, I listen to it. And then by the time I give it, I know it. I know what I want to say and I want to say how. And I think the other thing is I've had an amazing speaker coach at one point for keynotes, and like what you're doing in a keynote is it's a story. And you're drawing one to many emotions. And so it's not just about giving the content. I want to tell stories, or I want to connect with the audience. And that was just fascinating for me to think about keynotes as a way to kind of connect personally when it's a one-to-many state.
I intentionally didn't bring up tennis up until the end of the interview because I know we're both obsessed with it and this could take us in a whole different direction. But I also couldn't hide it anymore. At the same time, actually, one of your co-founders is a big inspiration for me in terms of public speaking. One of the interviews he gave, he mentioned that he measures the ratio at how many when people laugh or smile at his talks, and I think that humor or just thinking about the emotion that you want people to feel while you are telling a story, it's very important to make it more about them than about oneself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I think with keynotes and things I'm announcing is like, I think about how busy we are as humans. Like I'm a mom of 2 little boys and like I am working this job. I'm trying to play tennis on the side and my tennis career is not going well right now. And like, I'm trying to do all these things that are important to me. And why would I pick up a new product? Why would I pick up a new technology? Why would I find the time to learn it? And to me, that's the bar I give myself sometimes of like, if I'm going to announce something, I need to capture the moment. It has to be good enough that it was worth myself taking a pause in my week to learn something new. And I kind of hold ourselves to that bar as well, which is like, make it good, make it great, create the value for the customer.
You made this interview great. So thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Carlos, good to talk to you.